Number
Just
two,
let me just take this at the moment. What you said to Andrew Bridgen joining me, Tory MP joins me. Andrew Bridgen, am I right in suggesting that Rishi Sunak now has a real chance? He's of course one of the final two, but is there a sense that MPs vote very differently to the way your party will in a few weeks from now? Mr. Bridgen? Okay, we'll try and come to Mr. Bridgen in a moment, but please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
I think Rishi Sunak's got a great opportunity. He's by far the smoothest performer. It'll be a decision on varying policies. He disagrees with Liz Truss over tax policy. Rishi was the former Chancellor. He's now got a chance to pitch his policies that he'd enact if he gets to number one, get to the Prime Ministership with the membership, and he's got 5 weeks to do it. There's everything to play for. He's better on the...
The key, of course, seems to be handling of the economy. Would I be right in saying that, Mr. Bridgen? At the moment, the one advantage that Rishi Sunak has at a time when the economy is top of the mind, here you've got someone with a proven track record as Chancellor of the Exchequer, and that gives him a slight edge over Liz Truss. Would you agree with that?
I would, and many people will probably see Liz Truss's promises of huge tax cuts at a time when we're facing budgetary problems as Rishi puts it, it's fantasy, it's fairy tales, not economics. And that's the battle we're going to see over the next 5 weeks for the hearts and minds of the Conservative Party members up and down the country.
Am I right in saying the fact that he's of Indian origin, is that an advantage, disadvantage? How would it play out in your view?
I don't think it makes any difference now in the Conservative Party. If you actually look at all the candidates that stood on merit, we had a lot of women, we had a lot of ethnic minorities of all shades. And I think that shows the diversity in the Conservative Party. And I think the Socialists, the Labour Party in this country must have been green with envy that we could put up such a diversity of candidates. And our candidates, they were all there on merit.
So if you were a betting man, Mr. Bridgen, would you bet on a Rishi Sunak now becoming Prime Minister sometime in the autumn?
I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I wouldn't bet against him.
Very interesting. You wouldn't bet against him. I don't know, Lavina, whether you're a betting woman, but do you see Rishi Sunak now, in your view, the front runner, Lavina?
I don't know whether I'm using the right analogy, but I'm now in the middle wicket. I used to be saying that, no, that's not possible. But I see a very strong possibility of Rishi becoming the Prime Minister of this country solely because the opposition, as I say again, is not very strong. I'm joined here by Baroness Verma, who has been supporting Rishi, and now, as a Conservative Party member, has a vote as well. Baroness, I would like you to tell Rajdeep, what's going on in your mind now that Rishi has actually is one battle down?
Well, I just think that, first of all, like everyone else has said, we've had a brilliant, diverse list of candidates, and each one of them has performed incredibly well. And unfortunately, it's had to be that we are down to two, and I'm really pleased that actually with the members of Parliament, Rishi has come out way, way ahead of Liz Truss, which demonstrates a very clear thing to me, that they have a lot of faith in what Rishi will deliver.
And the members is the key.
But look, first of all, just think about it. When you've been actually recording the views of members of Parliament, they are reflected of their membership. And whether it was talking about Kemi, whether it was talking about Penny, whether it was talking about Tom, they were reflective of what the membership were talking about. So I have no doubt that the first South Asian Chancellor of this country, in Rishi, is going to be the person who is now going to take us forward. He's always been a one nation Tory. He's, like Andrew Bridgen has just said, he's very clear that we have got to be strict at the moment. The economics of the country need a Chancellor mindset which he's got, to now bring it forward into a premiership with a brilliant team around him. And I do hope that many of the people that were on that list are part of his team, because they all will add value to what Rishi is trying to deliver.
Okay, thank you. Just last bit, I would say, Rajdeep, that I interviewed Matt Hancock, the former health minister, and who will play a strong role in the cabinet, I would say now if Rishi comes, said that the fact that he's an Asian or an Indian did not play out, or any ethnicity did not play out in the entire vote scenario in the parliament behind me. And that is something that one should take forward from what has happened up till now. And of course, fingers crossed for what's going to come.
Right. Well, clearly we'll have to see how this plays out over the next few weeks. There's also the question of who Boris Johnson's supporters will go with. But for now, Rishi Sunak clearly the front runner. And that is incredible. Shows just how multiculturalism is truly, in a way, politically, that the Conservatives do not really look at Rishi's ethnicity when they are choosing their candidate. We'll wait and see whether Rishi Sunak makes it to 10 Downing Street or not. But for now, that's the big breaking news. Lavina Tandon there joining me from London. Thanks very much. Okay, let's turn from there to the big story at home, because after languishing in Tihar jail since he was first arrested in June, the co-founder of a fact-checking site, Alt News, Mohammed Zubair, was finally given interim bail by the Supreme Court. Not just that, the Uttar Pradesh's police's SIT has also been disbanded by the Apex Court, which came down heavily on the police and said arrests cannot be made in an arbitrary manner and must be made sparingly. It's our other big story tonight.
Alt News co-founder and fact-checker Mohammed Zubair gets interim bail in all 6 FIRs filed by the UP police over his tweets. The bail was granted by the Supreme Court bench of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Justice Surya Kant and Justice A.S. Bopanna. The court set the bail bond at 20,000 rupees and ordered his immediate release from Tihar jail once he furnishes the bond. All FIRs against Zubair will be clubbed together. The Delhi police will investigate the cases against Zubair. The special investigation team set up by the UP police is disbanded. The interim bail applies to all future FIRs that may be filed in the same matter. The court also drew the line on arrests. The top court said existence of powers of arrest must be distinguished from the exercise of powers of arrest, which must be used sparingly. The Supreme Court stated that there was neither jurisdiction nor reason to keep Zubair in continued detention. The judges also struck down the UP government's demand to stop Zubair from tweeting, saying a journalist cannot be asked to stop writing. The court said it cannot anticipatorily interdict Zubair from exercising his right of free speech. Earlier, the UP government told the court that Zubair was arrested not over his tweets but because of the violence sparked by his tweets. The UP government also claimed the fact-checker had admitted to getting money for his tweets. Zubair was arrested on June 27th for allegedly hurting religious sentiments through a tweet he posted in 2018. The Delhi police later added the charge of violating foreign funding rules. Then the UP police entered the picture, slapping 6 FIRs against him over his tweets. On Tuesday, a different Supreme Court bench had granted similar relief to Nupur Sharma, giving her interim protection from arrest.
A big win for fact-checker Mohammed Zubair, as the Supreme Court has not only granted him interim bail in the 6 FIRs registered against him across Uttar Pradesh. However, this case will also act as a precedent, as the court has said that just because the power of arrest exists, it does not mean that this power must be exercised. This will also act as a precedent now for other cases where people may be facing multiple FIRs for the same offence. In New Delhi, this is Anisha Mathur for India Today.
Now, the fact is, Mohammed Zubair is not the only one in recent times who's been arrested over tweets and accused then of hurting religious sentiments. On Wednesday, a filmmaker, Avinash Das, was sent to 1 day of police remand in Gujarat for sharing an old picture of Home Minister Amit Shah with a tainted IAS officer. It is a 4-year-old picture. A 19-year-old Saad Ansari from Maharashtra was arrested and also assaulted by a mob for a post backing suspended BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma, and he remains in jail. Actor Ketki Chitade spent 40 days in jail in Maharashtra. The reason, she reshared a post on NCP chief Sharad Pawar that was critical of him. In Kolkata, YouTuber Rodur Roy was also booked over his remarks on Mamata Banerjee and picked from the Goa police. So the question is, when it comes to free speech, where does one draw the line? The big questions tonight. Should the Supreme Court draw a line on arrests over social media posts in particular? What will it take to rein in the law enforcement agencies? And are such cases caught in a political tangle? Let's go straight across to my first guest. And joining me now, my first guest is one of the most distinguished members of the judiciary, a former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Madan Lokur. Appreciate your joining me, Madan Lokurji. I want to start by raising the question which the judges have in a way answered in the Zubair case, where they have said that the power to arrest exists, but it must be used sparingly. Do you believe that this message will really resonate, especially among the police forces and the lower courts in the country, who seem to be more than willing to allow arrests to be made in cases like these?
Yes, thank you, Rajiv, for inviting me for this show. You see, it's like this. What the Supreme Court has said is welcome. There's no doubt about it. But if you remember, I think about maybe 10 days ago, the Supreme Court said the same thing.
Yes.
Right? And much earlier, they also said the same thing, to the same effect, that you may have the power to do something, but that doesn't mean you should do it. Right? So while you have the power to arrest, it doesn't mean that you go around arresting people. So this message has been repeated by the Supreme Court, and so far it doesn't seem to have percolated down to the police.
Which is where I want to ask you, why has it not percolated down, Justice Lokur? Because as you said, the Supreme Court keeps saying that wrongful arrest should not be made. They even went as far as to say India must not become a police state. And yet we find in case after case, only yesterday, a filmmaker has been arrested by the Gujarat police, brought from Mumbai, because he put out a tweet of a photograph of Amit Shah with an arrested IAS officer.
Yes, there are two answers to your question. One is that, even if the police makes an illegal arrest, I mean, illegal in the sense that unwarranted arrest, I think the judiciary should be strong enough to say that, listen, sorry, just because you have arrested this person on some charge, we are not going to remand that person either into police custody or into judicial custody, but we are going to release that person, right? Grant him bail. So there, the judiciary has to, firm up and say that, sorry, we're not accepting this.
No, are we referring to the higher judiciary, Justice Lokur, here? Because the real problem seems to be in magistrates' courts, in courts across the country. Look at Zubair's case, where he had to go across half a dozen lower courts across Uttar Pradesh, where the courts were more than willing to put him in judicial custody.
Yes. You see, the person is first produced before the magistrates' court. So really, the lower judiciary, the district judiciary, has to be strong. But there have been instances in the recent past where even the High Court has said it's okay, right? So both, but primarily the lower judiciary or the district judiciary. That's one answer. The second answer is that of accountability. The courts should make the police accountable. Why have you arrested a person for no rhyme or reason, or for some, frivolous reason? You have to be accountable, right? So these are the two answers, and if these two answers are actually implemented, I'm sure, the police will learn their lesson.
Let's take that accountability question further, Justice Lokur. Are you saying today that if a police officer wrongfully arrests, if the court deems that he has been prima facie, wrongfully or maliciously arrested, if multiple FIRs are filed for the same case, as we've seen in several recent cases, that somewhere the court should say, we are going to actually penalize the police officer for wrongful arrest?
Yes, I'm saying that. Yes. Now look at the case of Zubair, for example, that 2018 tweet.
Yes.
Why should that person ever have been arrested for that? I mean, there was absolutely no reason, and at midnight or 2 o'clock or something in the morning, the magistrate says, all right, I remand him to 1 day's police custody. The magistrate should have said, sorry, I don't see any reason for remanding this person to custody. You release him immediately.
But Justice Lokur, you might recall last year, for example, Disha Ravi, an environmental activist,
Yes.
was picked up from Bangalore by the Delhi police, arrested for sedition. A young woman in her 20s, again, for allegedly being part of some Twitter campaign. I mean, the question is, the police officers got away, and those decisions could not have been taken by some lower level police officer. Often they are taken at a higher level and possibly on the instructions of their political masters, cutting across states. So where does accountability end, or where does it begin in cases of wrongful arrests?
The court will have to find out where the buck stops, right? Now, the investigating officer who produces the accused person, so to speak, and says that, listen, I want to arrest him. And the court says, sorry, I'm not going to let you arrest him. And I think you've done it, without any good reason. And I'm going to hold you accountable, right? That person will get the courage, assuming he's been told by his higher ups that, listen, you arrest. All right, that person will get the message across that, listen, I'm not going to listen to what you say because I'm the one who's going to have to pay the fine. I'm the one who's going to have to face the court. I'm the one who's going to be accountable. So unless that message goes, this will continue.
No, because the worry is that that message needs to go not just to the inspector in the police station in, let's say, Lakhimpur Kheri, where Zubair was produced, or a Hathras, or indeed in Gujarat at the moment, or Maharashtra, where we've seen the Ketki Chitale case when the MVA was in power. The message needs to go, Justice Lokur, to the political masters, whether it's the Maharashtra government or indeed the centre or the Gujarat government.
Yeah, wherever it has to go.
Who's going to, because my worry is that tomorrow there'll be another case very similar and nothing will change. The fact that I have with me, Justice Lokur, is 1840 people, 1840 people in 2020 were arrested for social media posts or statements they made. That's a huge amount.
Yeah, you're right. And if 1,840 people, police officers, are told that what are you doing, and we are going to fine you, we are going to hold you accountable, you will not get 1841. That one person will not come. The buck has to stop somewhere, right? Whether it stops at the political masters or whether it stops at some higher up level, wherever it stops, it has to stop, and the court has to find out where it should stop.
Can the Chief Justice send this message to every court in the country, every lower court? Can they get this message loud and clear that they have the power to, in a way, ensure that wrongful arrests are not made, malified arrests are not made?
No, that's the law. I mean, the Chief Justice doesn't have to tell anybody. The judge has to apply his mind and say, have you made out the ground for arrest? If you've not, sorry. Arnesh Kumar says that. Ask yourself the question, do I need to arrest this person? If you ask yourself this question, you will obviously come to the answer that maybe in a given case, it's not necessary to arrest this person. Then in that case, why have you arrested him?
There is one question that also is being debated: selectivity and consistency. We've seen, and today there are those who are putting out, because society has become so polarized, that in the Nupur Sharma case, why did the Supreme Court initially not give her relief, instead said she has to go across the country and face all the FIRs, held her responsible in a way for spreading violence? And in the Zubair case, they've come out in his favor. In the Arnab Goswami case, the vacation bench met the very next morning to ensure Arnab's freedom and liberty, rightfully so, I would say. But there are others who have languished for months in jail, under trials, faceless, languished for years. So how does the court ensure consistency, Justice Lokur?
I think that's for the judges to decide. One of the main attributes of the rule of law is predictability. You know what the law is, right? So the judges know what the law is. And they should not apply it selectively. It used to be said, show me the face and I'll show you the law, okay, with regard to lawyers. That should not happen. Everybody has to be treated equally. There's no doubt about it. So you can't say that, this person will be favored, that person will not be favored, this person's case will be taken up tomorrow, that person's case will be taken up day after. It shouldn't be like that.
But presumably the Nupur Sharma case, you believe, is very different to that of Zubair. Can two cases be equated, or is each case to be seen on the merits and the facts of that specific case?
Yeah, each case has to be seen on the merits, but there are certain settled principles of law, right? And if you go by those settled principles of law, for example, in Nupur Sharma's case, multiple FIRs, the Supreme Court has in many cases, including, as you had mentioned, in Arnab Goswami's case, there are so many other cases. They've all been clubbed together, right? It's happened today in Zubair's case. They've all been clubbed together, right? So that is something that should have been done. Okay. Now, also, in Nupur Sharma's case yesterday, they said that no coercive action should be taken against future FIRs arising out of the same interview or whatever talk show. Okay. But they've not done that in the case of Zubair. They said no coercive action should be taken. Right. That's not the same thing as, nothing should be done, because coercive action, supposing they have said that he should be granted bail, which means that he can be arrested. But if you arrest him, grant him bail,
So can I therefore ask you in conclusion, what's the larger message? Is the larger message that in this country, somehow when it comes particularly to free speech, free expression, when it comes to particular section 153, section 295, spreading enmity among communities, they can be used even today very arbitrarily by the police, and therefore the real message of today's order should go to our law enforcement machineries? You cannot use these laws arbitrarily, or is there something built into these laws that allow this arbitrariness?
Well, there are two answers again to this. One is the police. They should know that they cannot, interpret the law in whatever way they feel like doing it. Okay? Ask yourself the question, as the Supreme Court has said in Arnesh Kumar's case, do I need to arrest that person? Can I go ahead with the investigation without arresting that person? So the primary responsibility is that of the police or the investigating agency. Assuming they falter, then the responsibility is that of the judiciary. Why have you arrested him? You have to write down why you have arrested him, and look at the book that these people have. Find out the case diary. Is there any reason given? Or is it just that, I think he has violated section 153A, so therefore I want to arrest him? That's not a good enough reason.
One final point is part of the problem, Justice Lokur, that many of these cases are caught in the politics of our times. Depending on which is the ruling party in which state, if I say something against Mamata Banerjee, I'm in trouble in Bengal. I say something against Amit Shah, I'm in trouble in Gujarat. If I had said something till a few months ago against Uddhav Thackeray, I'd been in trouble in Maharashtra. If I said something against Mr. Modi, I'd be in trouble across the country. Is part of the problem the fact that politics has now, in a sense, influenced the way the criminal justice system works?
Well, with regard to the police, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. With regard to the police, maybe. But I believe that so far as the judiciary is concerned, they're not involved in politics. And if there are instances of this, it is absolutely wrong and unfortunate.
I want to press you once more on there. Are you telling me, sir, lower courts in particular are capable, let's say in a Gujarat, of resisting the pressures from their law enforcement agencies there, or lower courts in Assam or Maharashtra, any part of the country? Isn't it true that at the lower court level in particular, there are huge political pressures that operate, which some would say also extend at times to even higher courts?
Yeah, maybe. But that's why the judiciary has to be strong and independent. That's the fundamental principle, that you have to be independent.
Are
you
we?
have to be strong.
No, that's the fundamental principle. Are we independent? Do we really have an independent judiciary that can really, in a way, challenge these decisions that are taken by law enforcement machineries whose masters are the political executive? Can that be done?
I'm not too sure. Okay, I'm not too sure whether we are fully independent or not. But Are
we partly independent? Are we independent at all?
We are partly independent, partly not independent.
You're hedging your bet. But isn't that the real worry, therefore, as we conclude this, that we, in a sense, our judiciary at the moment is subject to all kinds of pressure, even public opinion at times, and that is, in a sense, influencing judgments and leading to wrongful arrests.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I mean, the district judiciary appears, the perception is, it appears to go along with what the investigating agency says. That's why you have expressions like executivized judiciary, right? That's why these expressions have come about. So there is this perception, and the judiciary has to make sure that the perception is that we are independent, regardless of what happens.
Executivized judiciary, that's a very interesting term that you've just reminded me of, and maybe there's a message in that we cannot allow our judiciary to compromise its independence and cannot allow the police to get away anymore with wrongful arrests, especially on behest of their political leadership.
And accountability.
And accountability. The buzzword from you, Justice Lokur, today is accountability. Someone will have to be held accountable, even if it means arresting police officers responsible for wrongful arrests.
Yeah. Why not? Okay. If it becomes necessary, yes.
Okay. Those are very strong words coming from you there, Justice Lokur. As always, I appreciate you joining me here on the news today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's widen this because we've just heard from a former judge of the Supreme Court very strong words. The police should be penalized for wrongful arrest. The judiciary is getting executivized and needs to stand up and be independent in the face of these wrongful arrests taking place. Vikram Singh, former DG Uttar Pradesh, joining me along with Arya Sundaram, senior advocate. I want quick responses from you. First from you, Vikram Singh, because the message to the police is very clear. You now cannot have these wrongful arrests. Look at what your UP police was doing. They had Zubair in 6 different places for the same tweet where an investigation was going on already in Delhi, clearly under political instructions. So one thing to penalize the police, who's going to touch your political masters?
Rajdeep, good evening. Good evening, sir. Mr. Sundaram, sir. Well, let him cast the first stone who has not sinned before. Of course, the integrity of the investigation is as sacred as the investigation of the entire judicial proceeding. If the police has gone beyond its brief, if it is perverse, it is malicious, then of course action needs to be taken. But
it never happens. No, but it never happens. The police officers who are responsible for these wrongful arrests are never touched. So they have an impunity.
I don't say they have an impunity. They say that there are no bad soldiers, there are only bad generals. I would fault the police leadership for that, because till about as late as 20 years ago, there were consequences for every person who did that. Bad investigation, worse prosecution, and both need to be punished. I don't think any such case has happened in the last 20 years, and that is where the fault line is, Rajdeep. This has to come with consequences. You have to be cruel, to be kind, to ensure that the rule of law is transparent, equitable and predictable. Okay. And if it is not that, then there's something horribly wrong in the entire process.
You know, those are all very nice. You know, I like it when retired police officers, retired bureaucrats use these strong words, because it's easier to say it when you're retired than when you're in the service, if I may say so, sir. But Arya Sundaram, do you really believe that anything will really change? Because every day in some part of the country it appears there is a wrongful arrest. We are focusing on this case, but as I said, in 2020, almost 1840 citizens were arrested for statements they had made or social media posts.
Rajdeep, when I joined the bar 40 years ago, the adage was, jail is an exception, bail is the rule. Every man is innocent until he's proved guilty. Within 10 years of my being in the bar, and I'm talking about 30 years ago, the entire thing got reversed. And let me tell you, what you're seeing today is nothing new. All that's happened is your media has become more active, more vociferous, more of these cases are noticed. Earlier, these cases were not noticed. Today, all of you notice these cases, therefore you're more vociferous, therefore you're talking more. I know 20 years ago it had all changed. To get bail in a matter on day one, even if you showed it was a completely civil matter, was so difficult you had to go finally to the High Court. or even to the Supreme Court. Nothing has changed.
No, but who is
maybe
responsible?
What has changed is
Mr.
media's
Sundaram,
awareness.
Sorry, sir.
Your media's awareness has changed.
Okay, but what has changed that now, as you said, whether it's particularly lower courts, are reluctant to grant bail? In fact, their first attitude is give the person police custody, judicial custody, we are not going to intervene. Then the individual has to go to High Court or Supreme Court and thereby loses 15 days to even longer of their life and liberty. And this stretches across states.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something, this has been the case for the last 25 years. The courts, the Supreme Court has cried itself hoarse by saying, don't arrest unless you need to arrest. Every case doesn't deserve an arrest. The court has been saying this for about 20 years. But the fact is, judges over the last very many years in the lower judiciary, subordinate judiciary, do not feel it wise to allow a person on bail, and they go on the side of erring, on the side of caution, which unfortunately is erring against the fundamental right to liberty. Because what they do is, they are so overawed when the police say this man will commit the crime again, he's a charge sheeter, there's a heinous crime, etc., etc. They find it easiest to keep the man in for another 2 weeks. And what is worse, let me tell you, your own channels, when somebody is released, is caught, whom you people feel is completely guilty, and he's given bail, you all shout out. You shout out and say, why has he been given bail? Why has he been released? Why has this been done? I've heard your media channel, I've heard other channels doing the same thing, because you have decided he's guilty.
Okay.
When you decide he's not guilty, you feel he should be given bail. My point is, everybody has to be applied the same law. Bail is a rule, jail is an exception.
Okay.
Not bail is the rule when the media feels it's a rule, and otherwise it's an exception.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but let me tell you, your channels itself have screamed when people have been given bail, because you said, how can this man be given bail?
Okay, you made
And
that
I've
point.
heard it.
Okay,
More
you
time
made
than
the
one.
point.
So
you
why
made the
does the whole
point. So
thing
there is
change
both.
now?
So there is both media awareness and trial by media. Therefore, a final word to you, Vikram Singh, and I want an honest answer. Are these cases, whether a filmmaker who was picked up yesterday from Maharashtra and taken to Gujarat because of a tweet involving Amit Shah, or indeed Mohammed Zubair's case, or indeed a case of Saad Ansari who has spent 40 days in jail in Mumbai, or a Ketki Chitle, are all these under political pressure? Be honest. The police is, just as the judiciary's independence is being questioned, so is the police. Police takes instructions from their political masters, and this extends at the top. Let's not blame the inspector in the police station.
You only have confirmed what I have said, that yes, there are no bad soldiers, there are only bad generals, Rajdeep. And yes, I have my own reservations in respect of the arrests made, because there were double standards, not doubles, there were triple standards. There were different standards for the Delhi, different standards for Assam and Gujarat, and that is where I have my reservations. If it is not transparent and equitable, equality before law, then of course there has been a tremendous and a huge miscarriage of justice, and that is where the fault line is.
Okay.
And I wish you had been patient enough to listen to the same advice and his observations of the illustrious Aryaman Sundar, but I knew you were a little uncomfortable and impatient. But have the patience to listen to people who have seen the world and given advice which has made me wiser, and I'm sure all of us who are listening to him.
Okay, let me leave it there. Vikram Singh, Aryaman Sundaram, strong words there. I hope someone is listening, because we will only come back again where the next high-profile case takes place, even as I can tell you hundreds of under-trials will languish without getting bail for years on end. But I appreciate both of you joining me here on the news today. Thank you both very much for joining me. Let's turn from there to my other big focus, and this time the police are under focus for another reason. Because remember, yesterday a Haryana police officer was mowed down in Nupur for trying to stop illegal mining. DSP Surinder Singh was run over by a dumper truck. He had got a tip-off and went to conduct a raid. The DSP was standing near his official vehicle when he asked the driver of the dumper that was illegally carrying mined sand to stop. He was mowed down. The driver instead ran over the cop and crushed him to death. The Haryana government and the state police have promised strict action and said that the killers of DSP Surinder Singh will not be spared. Okay, let's go straight across to Neelam Ahluwalia, founder member, Aravali Bachao Citizens Movement, because I think this country needs to know, Neelam, why is it that the sand mining mafias are able to, in a way, go unchecked? state after state. I was in Punjab during the elections and I saw their clout during the election time. Now we are seeing it in Haryana, not too far away from national capital, a police officer mowed down. Where do they get this impunity that they can get away?
It is for everyone, across the state of Haryana. Across the state of Haryana, we already knew that in Rajasthan the mining mafia is extremely active. But one didn't realize that they're becoming so powerful in Haryana as well, and we're actually at a loss of words, and it's just the DSP was just literally 3 months away from his retirement, and for an officer on a call of duty to be treated like that, it just shows that there are some very powerful interests which are actually protecting the money, the mafia, that they can actually think that they can get away with something like this. So
no, you've done a lot of work on it.
It's a wake-up call to the Haryana government that.
No, you've done a lot of work on this.
Sorry?
You've done a lot of work in this area. Is there a nexus on the ground clearly between the local netas, between those who run these sand mining, quarrying operations? Why is it that, what is it that prevents them from being checked? Why is it that they can't be reined in? Where do they get their power from?
So, I don't know. I guess these are really questions to be addressed to the politicians. But what the Aravali Bachao Citizens Movement has been doing is, we've been kind of raising the issues that are impacting the Aravalis around NCR and in Haryana and across the entire range over 4 states. And we recently filed a case in NGT in the month of May, and this was highlighting illegal stone and sand mining happening in 16 locations across Gurgaon, Nuh, and Faridabad. And a government task force has been formed as a result of this, which is supposed to be submitting its report in August before the next date of the court hearing. So it's just. This whole incident just comes to light that the state really needs to get its act together to protect its its officers, whether it's police, whether it's forest, whether its citizens are putting their life at risk to actually document these activities. It's the same for media people. And recently it's just very common news. It happens like all across the country that forest officers are who go to actually check this illegal mining. They're just like they're just shot and stuff like that. So it's really high time. I mean, we've actually, in this court case, in this NGT petition that we filed, we've asked for an independent Aravali Protection Authority to be formed because the state governments are clearly failing to protect the Aravalis. So,
I take your point. So you're going to need
Aravali Protection Authority, which
you're going to need an independent protecting authority that in a way.
I can't. Can you repeat that?
Okay. We need an independent, what you're calling for therefore is some kind of an authority that provides independent protection to these spaces like the Aravalis where this mining is rampant. Neelam Alwala, I appreciate your joining us. Sorry about the line that at times wasn't very clear to you, but I appreciate you joining me here on the news today. Let's move on from there to the other big story, because this happened in Haryana. In neighboring Punjab, a fierce encounter near the Pakistan border today, at the center of which were 2 gangsters involved in the murder of Punjabi singer and rapper Sidhu Moosewala. For over 5 hours, the Punjab police and the gangsters engaged in an intense fight, at the end of which Jagroop Singh and Manu, part of the Bishnoi gang, were shot dead. It's our other big story.
A deadly cat-and-mouse game in the fields of Punjab to nab gangsters linked to singer Sidhu Moosewala's murder. This was the hunt launched by the Punjab police near the Atari border for 2 wanted shooters. Through the small lanes near Amritsar, through fields, the police can be seen chasing down and trying to nab these deadly gangsters. These 2 men were part of the gang that shot at and murdered Sidhu Moosewala in his village at the end of May. Jagrup Singh Rupa and Manpreet Singh Manu hid in a remote village for hours as the police hunted for them. Gunshots were heard during this encounter that seemed straight out of the movies. Several police were also injured in the encounter as firing continued at the site. A local journalist also sustained injuries. Policemen armed to the teeth were seen making their way in and out as their vehicles blocked off villagers from the encounter site. At around 4:45 p.m, the encounter ended after 5 long hours.
Latest information ਸੀਗੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਇਸ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੋਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਫੋਲੋ ਅਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਸਵੇਰ ਸੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਟੀਮਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੇਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਹੈਵੀ ਐਕਸਚੇਂਜ ਆਫ ਫਾਇਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਗੈਂਗਸਟਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ.
The images of the killing of the singer, so fresh in our minds, and the Punjab police has been going after every single gangster, every single shooter involved in this murder. These 2 shooters are believed to be part of the Bishnoi and Goldie Brar gangs. That's right, the same gangster who confessed to his role in the Moosewala murder plot. From a teenager, the boy who fired the kill shot, to some of the most dreaded gangsters in the country. The Kill Moosewala plot is unraveling with each arrest. The rap star's cold-blooded daylight murder has prompted a much-needed crackdown on gangster culture in Punjab. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's take a break at this point. When we return, complete change of mood because on the other side is our good news today story. Today it comes from Saran in Bihar. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
I don't read the news. I read between the lines to tell you the true version of events. The true story of our times.
To document grief, the toughest assignment for any journalist to be.
From those who matter.
Women politicians going to stick up for each other.
Of those who should matter. I document the truth. I don't distort the truth. I don't glamorize the truth. I don't gloss over the truth.
The ghosts of India's contentious medieval history have come knocking again.
I hustle for the truth. On the ground, in the newsroom, in the studio. I don't try to grab eyeballs.
I inform you to make you see the point.
To the Point with Preeti Chaudhary. At these times, only on India Today.
Killer robots sound like something out of a science fiction horror film, but advances in technology mean that fully autonomous weapons could one day become a reality, transforming warfare. Autonomous weapons, which use artificial intelligence to select targets, are already being developed, aimed at reducing cost and risk to human soldiers, while increasing speed and efficiency in action. Unlike drones, which are operated by humans, killer robots would have some autonomous decision-making ability and capacity to act. Fully autonomous weapons would be capable of acting without any human intervention. They've been described as the third revolution in warfare after gunpowder and nuclear arms. Some of the world's most prominent scientists believe that fully autonomous weapons pose an unacceptable threat to humanity and could trigger an artificial intelligence arms race. In April 2013, a group of non-governmental organizations launched the Campaign to Stop Killer Robots, an international coalition working to ban fully autonomous weapons. The International Committee for Robot Arms Control, meanwhile, campaigns for the peaceful use of robotics and regulation of robot weapons.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
Welcome back. Let's turn to tonight's Good News Today story. It's the story of how a young woman is paving the way forward by setting up a school for free education. Neetu's Pathshala, as it is known, offers free education, tuition and study materials and currently has at least 200 students enrolled. Tonight's Good News Today story comes from Saran in Bihar.
This is Neetu's Pathshala, a coaching center run by young women for the underprivileged in Anval village in Bihar's Saran district. Education here is free of cost.
मतलब पढ़ाने की शुरुआत मैं 2 साल पहले सीखी और लगातार चल रहा है अभी। हम लोग का मकसद है कि जो सभी वर्ग के बच्चे हैं, गरीब वर्ग के बच्चे हैं, उनको मतलब पढ़ाया जाए और उनको शिक्षा दी जाए। खेला भी कराते हैं और चेस भी खिलवाते हैं और योगा भी शुरू करा दिए।
तो हम लोग शुरू किए तो 15 या 20 लड़के थे उस समय जो आसपास के लोग आ रहे थे। अभी आज के परिवेश में 200 बच्चे हैं और इनको फ्री शिक्षा दी जाती है। इन्हें पाठ्य पुस्तक आदि सामग्रियां दी जाती हैं। आर्थिक रूप से जो भी बच्चे विपन्न हैं या कमजोर हैं उनको हम लोग हर रूप से मदद करते हैं।
Neetu also distributes books, copies, pens and other materials to these students at no charge. The syllabus includes co-curricular activities like yoga, chess and other games.
स्कूल में थोड़ा बहुत समझाया जाता है और यहाँ पे आते हैं तो पूरा समझ में आ जाता है। खेलते भी हैं, कबड्डी और टेस्ट भी होता है और बाकी और योगा भी होता है और हम लोग का जो मन में आए वो खेलते भी है।
सब लड़का बढ़ते जाता है, एकदम बढ़ते जा रहल बा। सब बढ़िया शिक्षा देवेली, बढ़िया सब स्वेटर फुइटर जितना बा कॉपी किताब सारी चीज बाटेली। तारा 3 महीना 2 महीना पर बटाते रहता, पूरा लड़का एकदम जुटा रहता, सब पूरा ही फिट लेखा भर जाता।
Neetu says she was inspired by her brother who's preparing for the civil services exams. Students from classes 1 to 9 get tuition at the center. The coaching center that started with 10 to 15 students now has nearly 200 kids learning there. Bureau Report, India Today.
That's a good news story. The transformation taking place in education in smaller parts of the country is one of the big changes that we are seeing in recent times. Our image of the day, visuals of the heat wave that's gripping all of Europe. From Madrid to London to Paris, searing temperatures have also led to massive and uncontrollable wildfires. Over 1,700 people have succumbed, in fact, to the scorching heat across Europe. Call it climate change or whatever you would wish to term it, clearly Europe is facing the heat. For now, you stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind, good night, Shubhratri, Namaskar.
इस समय पूरी दुनिया में लोग कंफ्यूज्ड हैं। वो समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं क्या सही है, क्या गलत है, क्या सच है, क्या झूठ है। और ये स्पष्टता हम आपको अपने इस नए शो में देंगे। सब कुछ ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट में बताएंगे। इस शो में मेरे बालों के अलावा कुछ ग्रे नहीं होगा। हर खबर ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट की तरह बिल्कुल स्पष्ट होगी।
La main des aides-soignants. Pourquoi ? Parce que les aides-soignants aujourd'hui, ils sont globalement sous l'eau.
ils peuvent plus faire leur métier qui est de soigner. Et donc nous, Emobots, on leur fournit cette information de l'état émotionnel. Ils vont pouvoir mieux comprendre l'évolution de l'émotion de leurs résidents, de leurs patients. Et derrière, on sera aussi capable d'objectiver. C'est-à-dire qu'aujourd'hui, quand on fait un test pour la dépression, c'est un test normé, ponctuel, où on demande à la personne de verbaliser les informations. Et donc ça pose plein de problèmes. Et notamment de difficultés pour les personnes qui ne peuvent pas verbaliser.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India
We are humbled by this achievement. It gives us a great sense of responsibility to do more for the country. That has now seeped into the institution. All faculty, staff, and students have this pursuit of excellence.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today.
Presented by Green Lamb Laminates, Har Gustakhi Saaf. Co-powered by If It's Important, Blue Dot It.